Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Hebrews 10:23-25.
I'm Michelle. Today we begin a weekly series of interviews with pastors in our listening area. Churches may look different, they may have different music, preaching styles, and programs, but when the Word of God is preached and we are gathering together, we're following God's command. In our first interview, we welcome Pastor Kevin Norton of Hibbing Alliance Church. Pastor Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here on Psalm FM.
Oh, you are welcome, and I'm very honored to do so.
Well, it's always good to talk to different pastors and just find out about your ministry and a little bit about yourself and what brought you into the ministry. So first, let's just give a little overview of Hibbing Alliance Church. Tell us about the church and then how long you've been there.
Well, the church started here in 1923, so we just celebrated last year our 100th anniversary. It was in North Hibbing, and of course, Hibbing's the city that moved, so then it had to get moved to another location on Howard Street. It had a couple other locations before it's currently where it is now, at 4220 3rd Avenue West in Hibbing. And the church was, I would say its glorious heyday years was in the mid-'80s. They were doing evangelism explosion, so the church had to add from its original building, so we have a nice large facility with a gym, many classrooms, 2 kitchens, but what we're looking for is people to minister to. Otherwise, that doesn't have anything to do with it.
That's great.
And I've been here. I came here in 2003 of June of 2003, and it was a unique relationship because I was in between churches, living in Duluth during the early 2000s, and they needed a interim pastor. I came. God made it very clear, you're not to be either permanent pastor, so when the interim was over, I left. But then 6 months later, God moved and said, okay, it's time to go back. So
wow.
I've been here ever since. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of waiting on God and following His leading.
Not just for me either, for the whole congregation, because they said at the end, we know you said you're not supposed to stay, but we'd like you to stay. And my wife especially said, are you sure you heard from God? Because it would be great if we could stay here, but God had a plan beyond ours, and eventually we got to come back.
Well, He honored that obedience. That's neat.
Praise God.
That's been, 21 years now that you've been there?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Well, congratulations. All right.
Thank you.
And you have a wife. Do you have kids?
I do. I have 4 adult children.
Wonderful.
My oldest one lives in Bloomington. My daughter, Sarah, lives in Bloomington. She has 2 children. Her husband, Drew, works at the Evangelical Church of America's national office in the area of missions. My oldest son, Gabe, is a pastor in the Alliance. He's in Watertown, South Dakota. He has 6 children, 4 foster kids, and so he's very, very busy.
Wow.
My other daughter lives in Ireland. She married an Irishman when she was on a teaching at a private school in Jakarta, Indonesia. That's where she met Aiden. And they've got 3 children in Ireland. And then my youngest son just had his first child a year ago, and he lives down in Holly, Minnesota with his family.
Wow. Well, you are blessed. That's neat.
We are very blessed, yes.
So, Hibbing Alliance Church, tell us a little bit about the Alliance Church for those who aren't familiar with that denomination.
Okay. So the Christian and Missionary Alliance was started back in 1887 by our founder, Albert Benjamin Simpson. He was a Presbyterian minister. He was in New York, and he would go to the docks of New York when they'd come off of Ellis Island, and he would preach to and minister, evangelize to large Italian contingency back then. And he was a pastor of a very affluent church back in those days. And the church kind of said, it's great that you're reaching these lost people, but that their social status and ours are different, so don't bring them here. And so at that point, he felt God calling him then to just branch away. It was a kind of an agreement between the church and him. Then my heart is to reach the lost coming off the Ellis Island from immigration, and so He started working there. The Alliance continued its mission endeavor both locally and globally, but we didn't officially become a denomination actually till the mid-1970s. And then now we're a national, we became a denomination in the mid-1970s. Our national office was once in New York, and then it moved to Colorado Springs. It's now moving to Reynolds, Ohio. But the Alliance, its call is to go into areas where there's unreached people. So rather than just sending full-time missionaries to one location until they retire, it's to help those people become self-sufficient in the gospel and then move on to somewhere else. So as a result of that, the Christian Missionary Alliance has now what's called Alliance World Fellowship. So there's a national office in Canada, there's a national office in the United States, there's a national office in many places in Europe, Africa, because now they have their own group, I guess, that are monitoring themselves, managing themselves, and yet they're all a part of the Alliance World Fellowship. So it's kind of a brief overview. So our goal is to reach lost people for Christ.
Okay. Well, and that kind of answers my next question, but I'll just put it out there anyway if you want to expand on it at all, just about what the church in general, what is the church's role in the community, or what do you think is the purpose of the church?
Well, that's an interesting question because when we started getting toward the 100-year mark, we started looking at ourselves and said, what are we here for? Mm-hmm. And the Alliance talks about being an Acts 1:8 family, and that is to go into all the world, into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the othermost parts of the earth. But how does that look? And so we started about 4 years ago doing a revitalization process where we reevaluated why do we exist. It's not just for religious purposes or have our own little spiritual club. Jesus said it's go to make disciples. And so we are in the process of revitalizing how we do things so that we stay focused on making disciples. And you can't make disciples unless they know who Jesus is. So it's kind of we're now into small groups for that purpose, to make disciples. It's in the first half of our 2-phase process. So we're having small groups to grow our own people so they understand our responsibility to reach others for Christ. And then when we get to the end of our revitalization process of disciple making, it's supposed to become then let's reach lost people. And now this becomes a perpetual self-sufficient cycle of reaching lost people and discipling them to reach lost people, and et cetera, et cetera. It's God's plan, just that many churches, especially modern-day churches, kind of left that model and went to programming this and programming that. And so we're trying to have a fresh awakening for us of how we're supposed to do that.
Okay, so would you say that you have like a lot of seekers coming to your church, or is it more that you are discipling believers to be able to go out into their own neighborhoods and work environment or whatever to draw the lost?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of seekers, and we recognize we have a nice big facility, but we don't average a lot of attendance, less than 100 on Sunday mornings. Why is that? Because we got so used to doing our own thing, we forgot what we're here for. And so that's why discipleship right now, the first phase, is to grow people into understanding what our responsibility is and how we're supposed to fulfill that responsibility. The second phase, then, is to go and make disciples. So we call our process the Alpha Omega strategy. We have material from a man named Ian Miller, who is out of Australia. He created this, he called the Omega discipleship process, so we are in partnership with him, and it's kind of bringing someone from the beginning of their faith to the point of deployment, if you will. And then the second phase, which we are not started yet, but we have done in the past, and we have on our strategy plan, is the Alpha course, in which we will invite people to come with us to sit down to listen to presentations on who is Jesus and why did he have to die and is the Bible important, is it even real, and let them share their opinions and what their questions. and kind of a self-discovery through the power of the Holy Spirit of this is truth, and we're going to receive it to ourselves. And of course, once they do, then we'll move them into the small group discipleship process so that they can get to the point of deployment.
Yeah, so if somebody's listening right now and they're intrigued or interested in coming to Hibbing Alliance Church, when are your services, and again, where are you located?
Our service times are Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m., and we are located at 4220 3rd Avenue West in Hibbing, just on the south side of the Hibbing Co-op Bank. The reason I say that is because I think Google put somebody way out in the boonies someplace.
Oh no!
And then one of the other maps put us where we are. So that's why it's like you might see that we're across on the north side of Caribou Coffee, and 169 runs through Hibbing east and west before it goes north again. So we're on the south side of 169 as it runs east and west.
Well, thank you, Pastor Kevin Norton with Hibbing Alliance Church with us this morning. And is there anything else that you would like to say to the listeners?
No, I appreciate it very much. I mean, our what we shrunk this down to, our process is seeking God, changing lives. Mm-hmm. That's what God's called every believer to do. So we want to be faithful in how we do that. And I would pray and hope that all of our churches that you interview and so forth, that's the goal. And they have a strategic plan to accomplish it. Because without the plan, you could be spinning your wheels and doing church stuff, but you're really not reaching people. And that's what we are called to do.
Seeking God, changing lives. Very good. I like that. Pastor Kevin Norton, thank you for being with us from Hibbing Alliance Church. We appreciate your time and hope that some folks will check out your church if they're looking for a place to attend.
Well, thank you. They're always welcome. Thanks for letting us do this.